Welcome, everybody. We are live here. Scott Simpson, Nimble W Numbers on Twitter. I'm talking wide receiver 2 theory. Again, this is episode number 2 in our series this summer, helping you get closer to helping you win your fantasy football league by evaluating appreciated wide receiver 2s in their offenses. And to help me today is wide receiver guru, probably one of the best in the fantasy football business. Wide receivers are his forte. His Matt Forte.
Besides kickers.
Besides kickers. Well, you and Linda are the only two people I listen to about kickers ever. But without further ado, Denny Carter, CD Carter 13, the infamous Never Rizzed Up. How are you doing, sir?
Never been rizzed up. And folks, I'm doing well, Scott. Thanks for having me. I had to talk to my son, my 10-year-old son, about the rizzing after that video came out of baby Gronk being rizzed up by Livy and becoming the new drip king. I think we all remember that. I think that'll stay lodged in our memories for as long as we live. And so I had to know. I asked him. I asked his 11-year-old cousin, "What does rizzed up mean? What does that mean?" And they told me a little bit. They told me about all the different kinds of rizzing, and I said, "Okay, well, I've never been rizzed. I've never been rizzed up."
What did they say? Because I am confused. I'm not a Riz Master General here. I've got no idea kind of what this means. What are we talking about?
I think it means I could be wrong. I think it means hyped up, like being like
the man almost.
What is it?
Like being the man almost?
Yeah, right. Like someone saying you are the man. That is rizzing you up. I think that's how it goes.
So you can just be like rizzing yourself up by just effervescing Riz if you're out and about, you're Justin Jefferson. You're just oozing the Riz. Is that kind of how it would, the drip in the Riz?
Apparently there's W Riz, there's L Riz, for wins and loss Riz. I'm not exactly sure what qualifies for either of those definitions, but I think what we have to know as guys, I'll be 40 soon. I know you're a young man. You're 32 years old.
44.
You look 32.
Thank you.
And so I think what we need to know as men in our 40s is that there is no limit to the definition of rizzing. I think that's it.
No, I mean, it's in your bio. And so people are going to come to you and you might have to become a rizzed up expert now.
I think I might need to brush up on the rizzing.
Right. No. But if you haven't followed Denny Carter, then, you're living in a cave, because I've been following him for, I think in 2012, I followed you on my first account. Whenever you started a long time ago. Yeah. Back in the day. Because those accounts are long dormant on Twitter and never to be found. But I always had liked your style. And so you're here, 44,000, almost at 45. I love that. But the key here is this link here, the Bad Faith Times. Please do go check it out. It's great reading. It's deep thinking. And for somebody like myself as an educator, it really does kind of show you what's happening in society. So patron that as much as you can, folks.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I really enjoy writing for Bad Faith Times. We have a few writers who have contributed, and they've had some really good stuff. If anybody else has ideas that would fit the site, the Bad Faith Times site, I'm always welcome. I'm always open to hearing pitches for articles. So we are thinking deeply, and mostly we're just outraged, and we're writing very angrily on that site.
You know what? I'm thinking about it. You can hold a sign and go and pick it somewhere, and maybe somebody see you and you can get on TV, or you can reflect and critique and talk about and maybe look at the bigger picture. I'm not going to say I'm not going to protest, but protesting in written word, I think, is what I like that. I like that idea. So
it makes me feel, it makes me feel a little better. But also, and I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to get off on this tangent, but writing for me always helps me kind of sharpen my focus. It helps me realize what I actually think about something, right? And this can translate. I'm not going to get political. I've never gotten political, but I will say, this translates to fantasy football as well. I wrote the Seahawks preview, it's fantasy preview for Roto World the other day, and I didn't really have like a really firm take on that backfield and on that wide receiver group until I wrote it, until I look
Right.
into the numbers, until I had to take a stance on these guys. And I said, oh, okay, I'm thinking more clearly about this. So I would suggest folks maybe write up their thoughts. Even if you're not publishing them, you write
Yep.
them up and it helps you clarify.
Yeah, and journaling is a great way to reflect too on your process. If you're thinking about just writing a few things down each year in a fantasy journal, this is what I did last year. Here's how I approached it. You go back and reflect. Like last year, I won 3 of 5 leagues. I'm somebody who's hyper,
Wow.
competitive and hyper focused. So I know what I did, but maybe you won one of your leagues and you kind of didn't realize what you did to be successful. Journaling is a great way to go back and go, oh, I was thinking about this. I was monitoring this section, whatever it is. So.
Three of 5 leagues, bro. You should have retired. You should have retired.
I'm afraid to come out this year and lose, because if I don't win one of the leagues, then I'm just a utter completely.
Then you're done. No,
yeah.
no. I'm on a little bit of a cold streak, league winning wise. We played in the championship last year.
We did. Technically, we're co-champions of the Crab Cake League, so we both won because of kind of what happened with DeMar Hamlin, and in that situation, it gives a kind of a weird ending to lots of seasons. Human life was just way more important than like who's gonna win. Like it just didn't seem. But yeah, you're a co-champion there too, so
I enjoyed that, and I think that was a good decision. Yes.
Yeah. Other leagues where people from my church, ex-church, were involved in. They were fighting tooth and nail, bitterly to the death over the money. So like, it's just interesting. No honor amongst thieves, they say. But we're not going to thieve you today. A good transition here, because we're going to talk wide receivers that are undervalued and that you can get at ADP. And so, Denny, I'm going to use 4for4's ADP here. I know that you're a fan of 4for4. Not John Dangle, is there as well. And he is writing good stuff about vacated targets every year, which is an article that I look at. It's a myth, people say, but it's opportunity targets. Let's put it that way. There's opportunity in offenses where people have left, and there's gaps to fill in, a la Justin Jefferson a couple years ago. So let's start here with you. Who's somebody who is a wide receiver 2 on their team, kind of not being drafted in this top 12 or so, that you think is a good value for folks to kind of look in the later rounds, or not in the first couple rounds necessarily?
I guess I have a deep cut to start off with, and actually, Bo McBriar, who is watching us here and asks for his Crab Cake League invite. We have a Maryland-based league, and I'm sorry, as a Californian, he's legally not allowed to be in that league. He could go to prison for up to 4 years. So I wouldn't want that for Bo. So
no,
sorry, you cannot get into that league. Okay, now that I'm done with that long-winded joke, Romeo Doubs going as wide receiver. At least I have him as wide receiver 55 in ADP. We'll see what he is here. So here are some things about Romeo Doubs that I think could speak to him being either like neck and neck with Christian Watson as the top wide receiver for the Packers, or maybe even just the wide receiver 1 for the Packers. So last year on the season, Doubs, he missed 5 games with an ankle injury. He matched Alan Lazard in targets per route run and ran the second most routes on the team, despite missing, like I said, those 5 games. According to Next Gen Stats, Romeo Doubs had by far the best separation numbers among Green Bay wideouts in 2022. He doesn't rely, I should say, on the huge plays that Christian Watson relies on. And this is not me saying you can't draft Christian Watson. I also like Christian Watson. But when you're talking about ADP and you see Watson going as wide receiver 20-ish,
yep,
and Doubs is 55, I don't know. I just have a hard time saying that for certain that Watson's going to be the runaway alpha wide receiver 1 in that offense. I think Doubs could be.
Yeah. And also the touchdown equity, it's hard to repeat there. And if you, look at Christian Watson's story last year, it was just like touchdown. So not that it can't happen again, but it's a little hard to repeat that. I do like that a lot too, because according to not John Dangle, who we do love. John Daigle, he puts out for each year kind of the targets that are available in the offenses, and there is about 50% of the targets are available or up for grabs in Green Bay's offense. About 60% of their air yards, and those targets, inside the 20, they've got 16. So there's a bunch of different kind of metrics that you can look at to see that there's opportunity that is potentially available to somebody on the team. And Christian Watson will get his, but I think Dobbs gets his as well. I was going to ask you about Reed and how he factored in there, because I know that they drafted Jaden Reed, but it looks like you're more of a Dobbs guy given his success last year and just his familiarity with the offense.
Yes, I think that there's a lot to be said for that. I also think that Jordan Love fawning over Romeo Dobbs at every opportunity is something I have trouble ignoring. I'm not basing my entire draft strategy on nice things quarterbacks say about their pass catchers, but I can't help but notice that Jordan Love has a lot of great things. If I could, can I read you one thing, Scott?
Please do. Yeah, go for it.
Jordan Love said this about Romeo Dobbs during minicamp. When in doubt, you can throw it out there, and he's going to make a play. And he's done a great job of going and getting the ball wherever it's at. He's made some really tough catches, and it kind of just builds everybody's confidence. It builds my confidence in him just to be able to throw it out there and knowing he's always going to make a play. I think that there could be a lot of cheap PPR points to be had for Dobbs. And we kind of forget that going into last season, Dobbs, we had come together with our big brains and we had said Romeo Dobbs is going to be the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay.
Yes.
And so now Lazard is gone and we say, well, no, it's Watson. And Watson will make some big plays, and Watson will maybe win you some weeks with a 35-point outing. Okay. This is not to like say that Watson's not going to be good for fantasy. He is. But I think that Dobbs is being drafted way too late.
Yeah. You can't ignore somebody who in some leagues is going undrafted. He's around 14. I mean, maybe not undrafted, but wide receiver 63 on ADP here on 444, and ESPN 115. So I mean, he's getting picked, but yeah. Oh, sorry, that's DJ Shark. I mixed up. It's 219 on ESPN. So on ESPN, he's not getting picked.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really crazy. On Underdog, he's 121 on Underdog. So I think sometimes Underdog skews are thought a little bit from the best ball perspective. So,
I mean, come on. Underdog doesn't reflect normal people ADP. I mean, that's sicko shit there.
That's Pete Overzet level shit. Yeah. So yeah, no. I like that. I have a question for you. This is somebody who I talked about with Mike Reedy. I want to get your thoughts this year on Christian Kirk, the much maligned. He's not being drafted as the wide receiver 1 on his team right now. He's being drafted at wide receiver 30, about 11 picks behind the newly, reinstated Calvin Ridley, who's ready to come back and take over the league. Apparently, at least drafters think so. But I want to hit you with some stats from last year from Christian Kirk in his role in the slot. So he had the second most slot yards. He was only about 44 yards behind CeeDee Lamb, who had the most. He had 870 or 67. And Christian Kirk had 823 yards. He had 61 receptions, and that was tied, I think, for third overall. So I don't see a big change in Kirk's role necessarily because Calvin Ridley he can be running out of the slot, but I don't think that's where they're going to run him necessarily. Kirk was brilliant last year with Lawrence towards the end of the season too. Their rapport was excellent. So at wide receiver 30, he's somebody who I am targeting. He's in my wide receiver 2 article I'm writing this summer. What do you think about him though? Is he fool's gold? Are we kind of missing the boat here as a one-time wonder?
No. I'm generally not taking Ridley unless he falls past his ADP, which of course I'm having trouble finding at the moment. It's wide receiver 19-ish.
Yeah.
And then Kirk is going at 29, wide receiver 29 or 30 in that range. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the way that targets are probably going to be distributed in that Jacksonville offense. On the Roto World Football Show, me and Pat Doherty interviewed really good, knowledgeable Jags beat reporter, and he said, no one in this offense is going to be heavily targeted every single week. So, in other words, like, they're not going to create an offense where Calvin Ridley gets force-fed targets. And I think that that's kind of where, people drafting him are thinking, oh, well, I'm drafting Calvin Ridley from 2020 when he was being
Right.
force-fed targets in Atlanta. I don't see that happening. Now, I don't think Ridley will be catastrophic for people taking him at that ADP. I don't know if he's going to get much beyond that ADP, but I like Kirk a lot. If I had to choose adjusted for redraft price point, I'm taking Kirk.
Yeah, and we are talking redraft, and particularly home leagues. I think Denny and I are in some industry leagues or fantasy leagues, and sometimes analysts are a little bit like they think ahead of the curve, where they're kind of just have theories or whatever. So it's a little wild or whatever. But in your home league, hopefully it's not as much variance, and you can find Kirk in the end of the 6th round where he's kind of going, middle of the 6.8, 608, and that's 2 rounds later than Ridley. You're getting a little bit of a value there, which it's interesting. Only these little things matter, and that's why I love wide receiver theory so much, is wide receiver 2 theory so much, is because you need little edges. Like there's not one guy who's going to win you your league every year. Like it's like fool's gold to think I'm going to get the one guy. I found the one guy. Now maybe if you had Cooper Kupp, you're more likely to win, but you need a lot of little guys. Like last year, you needed Zay Jones, you needed Justin Jefferson, you needed Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know I had those were my 3 wide receivers. You had to have like Evan Ingram the later. There's certain people that you just needed to have all year round, and so the more little right choices you can have, it does add up over time, and you are successful. And that's why you're the wide receiver guru. Honestly, I'm not even talking running backs, and you know all about them too. So
I've never drafted one. I don't know.
I've never seen that before. Is there anybody else too? It can be a veteran, it can be a rookie. Anybody else that you are kind of eyeing as a wide receiver 2 this year? I've got a couple rookies, but I'm holding back. I want to hear what you have to say if you have a rookie or 2 up your sleeve.
Yeah. So, I know there are a lot of red flags, rightfully so, for Quentin Johnston with the Chargers. And I think that, a real life pick, I don't really get it for the Chargers. But if you're high on Justin Herbert in this new Kellen Moore offense, and it should be more aggressive with more downfield throwing, if you think that Justin Herbert's going to have a big year, then you necessarily probably have to be high on Quentin Johnston at his ADP, which is pretty depressed. And I'm not saying that you're drafting Johnston with the assumption or the belief or even the hope, because we don't hope for this, but that Mike Williams misses time. But man, Mike Williams misses a lot of time. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in my mind's eye, which that's what I use, Scott, to draft teams.
We know now.
My third eye is I can envision a scenario where Mike Williams misses some time and Quentin Johnston just gets funneled targets on the outside as the main boundary receiver for Justin Herbert. And so, if I think Herbert's going to throw a bunch of touchdowns this year, then Keenan Allen's not going to catch all of them. So I got to be high on him, and I got to be high on Gerald Everett necessarily.
Yeah, I do like it. Last year, you saw Gerald Everett flash at times, and then you also saw them looking for someone else. Keenan Allen missed a lot of time during the season. Was it Jordan Palmer? I forget. Is that what his name is? No, Palmer. Yeah, I forget. He didn't do a good job last year. He did not stand out. Right. That's why he's
terrible. He's terrible.
Yeah, and that was somebody who they drafted 2 years ago to come fill in and be that Mike Williams bridge in case they did not keep him. They're keeping him for a little bit. So. Yeah, I do like that. And as Mike Williams was a wide receiver 2 theory candidate last year, he's not this year. Just given Johnson's presence there, it just changes the dynamic of that team. And I do think they are going to feature him. He might not kick right away. It might not flash right away, but I think later on in the season, you're going to see that offense does hum better if you've got 3 options. And Keenan Allen, he's super man every year. He's not hurt. But you still got to pay up for him. Wide receiver 18. He's not outside the top 20. So these guys are cheaper that you can get.
For sure. So what's one of your rookie receivers you wanted to mention?
I'm thinking outside the box here too. I'm trying to not just go for the Jordan Addisons of the world, who by the way, he's a Maryland guy. 148 miles an hour and a 55. Is that is not
That's a
no.
lot. That's
That's
very
I've
fast.
never driven that far or fast or whatever it is. So I hope that does not happen anymore. He learned his lesson. He's kind of the sexy pick filling in that Adam Thielen role necessarily, but I'm trying to think outside the box. And so what I'm looking at is Tank Dell, right? He's a small little fella, 170 pounds, maybe soaking wet. But him and CJ Stroud, they have had a connection so far in the mini camps. I'm looking for them to build that connection. His speed for me gets him there, and then also his draft price. Like no one's drafting him. He's nowhere to be found. You can't. He's even on 4 for 4. Yeah, he's wide receiver 90 on 4 for 4. And what kind of draws me to him is not necessarily that his size or anything like that, but it's that they have, and you're gonna love this, 69% of their air yards vacated.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's a lot. Over 350 targets left the offense in Cooks leaving, and in just Dorsett and different wide receivers going. So there is an opportunity there. You have a rookie quarterback, so that's something to watch. Maybe he does not pop, but I think you see these guys who are smaller, like Tyler Lockett. He has not been hit in years. No one's even hit. You can't hit Tyler Lockett. He falls down before he gets hit. So hopefully, Dell's watching all those videos of Lockett.
I do like Dell, and apparently Stroud kind of banged the table for the Texans to draft Tank Dell. So that's good. That is good to hear. And there is a lot of opportunity there. Can I interest you in Robert Woods' wide receiver 1 season?
Yes. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear that.
I mean, look, it's boring and kind of bleak for the Texans organization, but he's very familiar with the offense that they're installing there.
Mm-hmm.
He's another year removed from a major injury. There's just not a whole lot of competition there for targets outside of like Nico Collins. And really, I mean, I feel like we've talked ourselves like silly about Nico Collins at this point. Look, I'm not saying I'm thrilled to draft Robert Woods. And honestly, the way I put together my teams, I have no use for a receiver like Robert Woods. But I mean, if you're struggling at receiver, if you went running back heavy, tight end heavy, quarterback heavy, and you're just sort of like picking up the pieces at receiver later in the draft, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Robert Woods, I think.
I did just pick him up in a dynasty league, which was like round 18 or 19, because no one wants him. But there is opportunity there for him. He could be the wide receiver 1, and he's being drafted on 4 for 4 over at wide receiver 94. So yeah, you could get him. It's Josh Palmer, by the way, not Jordan. Sorry,
not Josh Palmer.
I'm getting old. But no, I do like the Robert Woods. He is consistent. When he was healthy, he was a compliment to Cooper Kupp just 3 years ago. He was a Batman and Robin. It was who's that wide receiver 2 theory. Part of it was those two guys fighting it back and forth, and they always flip flopped. Who was getting more points each year, and then so if you pick the other one, you got it at value. So that was actually one of the initial kind of thinkings in my brain, just going, look all this data, look all these people misvaluing. So okay, all right, now last question before we finally raise you up, figure out how to do that. And maybe we've been doing it all along with your face in the background and all that.
I feel rizzed. You
might have to change your bio. You might be being rizzed at the moment. Is there a wide receiver that doesn't necessarily have to fit in the wide receiver 2 umbrella? It could be any wide receiver this year, just somebody that you're looking at to kind of walk away from your drafts with, kind of either you're building around him or you're making sure you get him in your build.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I wrote up the Seahawks offense. You can check that out on Roto World. Everybody's loving the new website, so check that out on the new site. And I feel like Tyler Lockett, he fits the wide receiver 2 theory because he could be the wide receiver 1 on the Seahawks pretty easily, and he's going way after DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf is being drafted probably above his ceiling
Yes.
and Lockett is being drafted below his floor. I also think that Jackson Smith and Jigba is being drafted pretty fairly.
Yeah.
For what his role will be in that offense would be likely be the main slot guy throughout the season. So I don't really get the Seahawks. You know what I think it is, and this sounds silly, but just hear me out.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf is really physically impressive. Okay, he has 14 ab muscles. I don't know how this is possible, but he does. And so we see pictures of that, and we know that, and we say, my God, that guy has to go way above Tyler Lockett, who looks, Tyler Lockett is a little munchkin running around out there, right?
Guy.
And he doesn't have 14 abs. I never seen 14 abs on Tyler Lockett. So I actually think that we have the way we think about these guys with the Seahawks has completely tainted the way that we value them in fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. He's getting drafted about 13 spots ahead. Metcalf is of Lockett, end of the third round for Metcalf compared to middle of the sixth. So they're not finishing 100 points away from each other each year.
Exactly. I mean, who in the right mind would say DK Metcalf will definitely outscore Tyler Lockett this year? Like 100%. There's you can't say that. You can't say that. And maybe they're neck and neck. Maybe they're real close. Maybe Lockett just scores more, but that's not built into their ADPs. And I think if you're going 0 RB, which I do love some 0 RB.
Yes, you do.
You can get Tyler Lockett as easily as your wide receiver 4, which is just silly, honestly.
Well, he outscored DK Metcalf by 11 points, people.
Last year. Not in 2015, last year.
Right. Yeah, union guys for sure, man. Yeah,
there you go.
This is ridiculous. I love it. I'll tell you my guy. And I did mention him before the show, just in case we don't want to. Not that we can't have the same guys. We can always love the same guys, but I could switch up or have a different guy. So we can give people different analysis. But my guy is Devonta Smith, and I'll tell you after a little bit of an analysis from last year, from week 9 on, which was 10 games at the end of the season. They had their bye before. The difference in scoring between AJ Brown and Devonta Smith was 0.2. It was 16.4 to 16.2. Wow. So listen, for 0.2, really the last half of the season, I like to look at the last half to kind of see. The first half is important too. It's all important, but that last half was real consistent. Target share was right there too for him. He only finished with 10 less targets. So I love Devonta Smith. He's getting drafted a little high. Compared, he's not like he's one of those wide receivers who's in the top 12 or close to the top 12. So he's not in the lower rounds. So you have to pay up for him, but I think it's worth it. I do think his upside is there. We've seen him dominate. We've seen him go up against bigger guys. It doesn't matter. This guy is a baller. So I'm putting my chips in with him this year. I just want to have him on a lot of my teams when I draft it in redraft. So I put some of my cards out there. I'm in a league with you already. You know this. So if we're near each other, I'm going for Devonta Smith in the third. It's got to happen.
Yeah, as an AJ Brown drafter last year, it was a little bit disheartening to see Devonta Smith come so close to him in both opportunity and production. I think there's a chance certainly that Devonta Smith will just flat out score more fantasy points than AJ Brown this year. And going into last year, at least for me, that was not really a thought. That was not a consideration at all. And this year, I'm like, could be. But I also think that Devonta Smith's ADP reflects that at least a little bit this year. That Philadelphia passing attack could really explode because last year I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there were so many games where the Eagles were able to either bench their starters because they were up by so much, or really just take the air out of the football and not pass, not just in the fourth quarter, but throughout the second half of games. I'm sure you remember this. So and that really affected the overall production of the Eagles pass catchers. Now, if we can get a season where Jalen Hurts and company are actually pushed to keep throwing at least a little bit in the second half, that could be really good for a guy like Smith.
Yeah. And a lot of those games you would see not just not throwing the football anymore, but they would possess the ball the whole second half of the game running it. And so you'd be like, "Whoa, my God!" I think the Pittsburgh game, AJ Brown caught 3 touchdowns, right? So he was the man that we scored 40 points, and in that game, I look it up on my little super spreadsheet, which I have, but I'm pretty sure Devonta Smith in that game did not go off because it was week 8, so he did not go off in week 8 because his boy went off, so he's under like 5 points, so you're not going to have somebody getting 4 touchdowns and then
Well, I mean, last year you knew if your Eagles receiver didn't get his in the first half, you knew it was over for you because the team was so good that they were definitely not going to have to throw in the second half.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get some more offensive explosion this year, and kind of build the intrigue. So, well, Denny, I thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you immensely. Can you tell people where they can find you, where your work is being showcased this year? And I can pull up your website here as well.
Sure. Appreciate you having me on again. At CD Carter 13 on Twitter for as long as Twitter is not dead. And I am on the Blue Sky Machine, as you can see there in the old profile.
Nice.
I know that's still it's still in beta mode, which fits me as a beta male. I just really
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to.
It comes together nicely there. And then all my writing, football writing, and everything is on Roto World on NBC Sports. And just check out Bad Faith Times if you get a chance.
Yeah, so I'm trying to go up to Roto World, but it's not working. Yeah, Bad Faith Times. These are must reads, friends. If you're particularly not political, they'll suit you. Yeah, they'll suit you.
Yeah.
But Denny is one of my favorite people, and you can see actually I'm subscribed on here. So I feel like if you benefit from a content producer, and you feed the content producers. How about that? You know what I mean? Like
we need that.
It's just come on.
Yeah, I appreciate your sports guy, and let's do this again later in the summer. Also, we need to get out there and play some. You need to heal up, and we need to play some golf.
I will say this: the knee is feeling much better after the trip to Canada, which I'm leaving tomorrow. I do think that it'll be good. I've not been even wearing the knee brace. It's just torque. I'm worried about torque in the lateral movement, but I'll wear the knee brace when we play for sure. But Mike's been getting cocky. Ralph Macho Mike over there. Oh. Watch your back. Yeah.
No, we can't have that. Listen, if I have to push you around in a wheelchair on the course, I'll do it. I will do it.
Yeah, it'll be the lowest T moment of my life. So. No, well, thank you, Denny, so much. This has been a pleasure. Go follow him, everybody. Yeah, and when Wide Receiver 2 Theory drops, it'll be about mid-August, right before draft season, right before you're about to draft your teams. I'll make sure to include some of the quotes and some of the things that Denny said about his receivers and give you some of the guys that we've talked about in this series. So please be on the lookout for that. And Denny, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.